Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. If it's your first time hopping on, welcome to my page or my video. I'm Shakti, I'm a health and fitness coach. I'm also an intuitive, metaphysician, yogini, massage therapist. I wear many hats, all of which coincide in this work of what does it mean to be a material being? What does it mean to be a spiritual being? What does it mean to be existing in this material plane as a spiritual being? That's the bridging of those worlds is really the core of my work. So a lot of my videos address both of these things and how they are related because they are so intimately related. And this topic is no exception to what I usually talk about. So if you're new to my story, have no idea what my story is, I am a mom of a 2-year-old, just recently turned 2. And my pregnancy was an awesome pregnancy. It totally rocked. I mean, I worked doing massage until I was 9 months pregnant. My water broke at work. I had a really fast delivery. It was completely unmedicated vaginal birth, and it was great, really. I can't complain. What followed after the birth, though, was a very, very different story. And this began a really intense unraveling of myself as I knew myself to be. This was the beginning of a very, very profound soul search, and one that I don't think I was very ready to take on. I was very reluctant to step into that, and it was a really painful postpartum series. And even up until I would say maybe 4 months ago, it's been very much like this. And if you've had postpartum anxiety or depression, or you know someone who has and you know exactly what I'm talking about, it's a very difficult thing to communicate because people have all these weird misconceptions of what depression and anxiety are and how that relates to being a mother. And I felt very bonded to my son right away. I didn't have the experience where I rejected my son. That was not my story. I loved my son. I was so aware of all of his needs and so present with all of his needs. But it was almost like I was overly present and overly there, to the point where I wouldn't let anybody help me. I wouldn't even let my husband really hold him. I was very like, no, only me type of thing. This is where the anxiety portion of that experience happened. And then the depression was, there was a lot of crying, which they tell you baby blues are normal, but they should pass within a couple of weeks, and that was not my experience. There was a lot of crying for a very, very long time, and a lot of self-doubt, a lot of like, can I do this? Am I a good mom? Am I being a shitty mom? And do I even know how to take care of a child? A lot of the normal, I think, dialogue that happens when you're a first-time mom and you don't know what's going on and you don't have a ton of experience with children, because I didn't. I wasn't like a nanny at any point in time, or, I didn't have that kind of interaction with small children on a regular basis. So this was all extremely brand new to me. And of course, as was my history with food in general, I had body image dysmorphia for as long as I can remember as a young girl. And I thought I looked completely different than I did look. And I was always super self-conscious of my weight and my body. And I was always trying to like downplay that or upplay my personality, because I happen to be quite an extrovert naturally, and kind of like downplay the fact that I felt very uncomfortable in my body at all times. And even when it came to sexuality and sexual relationships, I was always like very aggressive and always tried to play up my intensity in order to hide away the fact that I didn't really want someone to look at me. That made me really, really uncomfortable. And this is not something I've ever really spoken about in public, but I think this is a conversation piece that's really important. I want to set this up so you guys understand where I'm coming from, my background. So all of that being said, food was a sort of like love-hate thing. So I lived in relationship to food where it's like I loved food, I love experiencing food, but I also overindulged in food. And I tend to overindulge in food when I'm feeling really emotional. It even could be happiness, and something a lot of people think, well, people overindulge when they're sad, but that's not necessarily true for me. I overindulge when I'm happy as well. And what ends up happening as part of my self-sabotage or my tape is that I will be so excited about something or really pumped about something or feeling really good. I'll hit this kind of threshold for how good I can feel. I'll talk about thresholds in a second. And then I'll do something to kind of sabotage that feeling of pleasure. This is one of my biggest tapes. And if you can relate to this, please send me some hearts so that I know that you're picking up what I'm putting down. So I have this threshold, and your thresholds get set really, really young, like really young. You have a thermostat sort of set for you for what's acceptable as far as pleasure or pain or whatever, which is why as adults, a lot of us have this really, really high tolerance for pain and displeasure. Like, we can handle a lot of shit that is not good for us over a long period of time. We have an extremely high threshold for suffering, for being victimized, and that started very, very young when we developed that threshold. On the opposite side of that, we have a very low threshold for experiencing things like pleasure, and the majority of women that I meet, this is their story. It's not a rare occurrence to hear the same kind of thing. They're just not aware that they have that. They don't have the language to talk about thermostats, for example. So that gets set really young, and then as you get older, your whole life will align to that threshold that you have. So if you start to experience too much joy, too much pleasure, too much intimacy, this is a big one, and you don't have a threshold that allows for that, you don't have space for that, you're going to sabotage that some way. You're going to ruin that relationship. You're going to say something shitty that you know you shouldn't say. You're going to eat the cake that you really don't want to eat, but you feel like you want to eat it in your mind. You're going to self-sabotage yourself because you've bumped up against an edge, a wall, that you don't have space to go beyond. Okay? This is where mindfulness work is so, so important and so key. So this is my story. This is where I've been with food and my pleasure threshold being really low, and every time I experience a certain amount of pleasure, I get uncomfortable and I have to sabotage. And I did that with food a lot. Food would be like a weight. It would anchor me back down, especially heavy foods that tend to slow you down, like carbs or meat. These are things that are heavy in our system, and they tend to be very grounding when you ingest them. And so I was using food that way for a very long time, not just to kind of level out my displeasure or my overwhelm, especially during that postpartum period. I was overwhelmed a lot, and so I was leaning on food, sugar, sweets, things that I knew were like comfort foods for me, to weigh me down and to kind of mitigate that feeling of overwhelm. This was very common and has been common my whole life, but it was very accented for me in that postpartum period because I was already experiencing so much difficulty being a new mom. So there have been many times in my life with my young son as he's gotten older where I've taken him out to the park like I just did today to play, and it wasn't until I had a revelation today when I was at the park, and this is what inspired this video and why I want to talk about this. So if you've been following my journey, you know that for the past week and a half, I've started a new fitness program. I do fitness programs all the time, but this one was very different. And the reason I say this one was very different was because it's more intense than anything I've ever done physically. But the nutrition component of this program is more intense than anything I've ever done physically. And what I mean by that is that it's timed nutrition. So you're eating very specific types of food at very specific times. And depending on your weight and where you're wanting to go with your fitness, you fit into a certain bracket of how many of what you can eat a day. So the way I've been eating has dramatically changed because of this program. And I committed to the program, so I committed to the eating guide. That's just what we do. What I was unprepared to learn in this process of being on this program is, yes, I expected to get ripped. Yes, I expected to lose weight. I expected to lose inches. I expected to feel better because I'm getting stronger and I'm working out. But what I did not expect was the amount of impact that doing that would have on my emotional body. I was unprepared for the amount of impact that would have at a very core level to my mental health and my emotional body, and I'll share with you what I mean. So I just spent about an hour at the park with my son and just laughing with him and watching him play and feeling a tremendous amount of joy that he was outside in nature, running around and being a 2-year-old who's extremely exuberant and joyful. My son is just so joyful and exuberant. And I got to enjoy him in his exuberance. And I was talking to other parents, and I was laughing, and I was just being really lighthearted. And at no point in time did I feel any form of anxiety or I wanted to pull him away from interacting with other children or parents, or I wanted to kind of hide and not talk to any parents, or I just felt this boundless sense, I had no boundaries, I was so one with everything that was happening around me and so connected to everything that was happening, and it felt so calming and soothing inside. And it hit me when I was driving away and coming here that's perhaps the first time in my son's entire life, in the 2 years that he's been alive, that I've been able to enjoy him, enjoying himself, without feeling a remnant of my own anxiety or suffering or dark cloud in any way. And when I realized that, it was such a light bulb moment for me. And I knew that the reason I feel that way was because of the way that I'm eating. As much of a jump as that sounds, it's the only thing I've changed in my life in the past week and a half. And I've already been sharing a little bit about what I've been noticing about myself. I'm laughing more. I used to laugh a lot when I was a child. I love humor. I love being funny. I love seeing funny things. But I haven't really been laughing as an adult very much, and especially not since my son was born. It's really, that's changed about me. And lately, in the past week and a half, I'm laughing so much more. I'm so much lighthearted. I feel so lighthearted in a way that I haven't felt in years of being an adult. And I've shared things I'm sleeping better at night, which I am. I sleep like a rock. I don't wake up anymore in the middle of the night at all. I sleep. The whole time I'm there, I'm asleep. And my skin is amazing. It's cleared up, ridiculous. It's just so vibrant, and my energy is through the roof, and I can think clearly, and I just handle my life with so much ease, and there's no brain fog at all. And all of those things are true, but it didn't really hit me how important that was until today, when I was with my son and I was able to just be there and feel joy for him in the moment that he was experiencing joy. And I needed to come on and share that because I want you guys to understand, when I talk about fitness programs and I talk about nutrition, it doesn't mean I'm perfect, right? But it does mean that I am committed to being the best I can be to show you guys what's possible for you. That's what I feel my real role in this is to show you guys what is possible for you, to break my own barriers so I can demonstrate to you in a very physical way what is possible for you to break through. That's what I really see my role as a coach as. And when I say to you that this has been absolutely groundbreaking in my experience of postpartum depression and anxiety, that is such a massive understatement. I can't even highlight that enough. That if I knew what I know now about the impact that food has on my mind and on my heart, I would have done this shit way earlier. It is remarkable to me how different I feel. Not just me, my husband. So my husband decided to do this meal plan. Of course, a different bracket because he's much larger than I am and needs a lot more food. But it is a vegan meal plan. The program has 2 plans. It has not vegan and vegan. We chose to go with plant-based because we're wanting to move in that direction. And he just comes home with this energy and this light in his eyes, and he is so much more connected than I've seen him, and so much more energized and awake than I've seen my husband ever in the time we've been together, dating or not. And he said it to me last night. He's like, I feel better than I have ever felt my entire life. And we wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, both of us. We go to sleep at 10:30, which is late. We really only get about 6.5 hours of sleep. So we're sleeping less than we ever have slept. But we have more energy than we've ever had. And not only that, we are calm. We both have anxiety. We are calm. We are present in our day. It is remarkable how different I feel right here, right now, talking to you guys on camera than I did 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. So I wanted to share my experience and pass that on, because I'm not saying you need to go vegan and do the plan that I'm doing. I'm saying if you are suffering with anxiety and depression and you have not addressed your nutrition, really address your nutrition. I don't mean, we have this false sense. We think that we're doing better than we are. And I'm about to take everybody to church and call everybody out, because this is true. We tend to overestimate how well we're doing when it comes to our nutrition. I eat all right. I eat pretty healthy. I hear that all the time. But I guarantee you, if you were to track what you're actually eating at every meal of every day, you would shock the shit out of yourself at how poorly you're actually doing and making choices for your body. That was true for me. And this program called my ass out big time, because I had to become so conscientious of what I'm eating. So if you are struggling with anxiety and depression, you need to look at your nutrition. You need to get honest about what you're eating and check that first. Because I can pretty much bet you $100 it's going to make a massive impact on how you feel. This is not about taking medication, not taking medication. That's not part of this conversation. Whatever you feel like you need to do, you do. But if you're taking medication and you're still eating like shit, you're not doing yourself any favors. You need to look at your nutrition. You need to get honest about your nutrition, and you need to get organized about your nutrition. More than anything, you need to get organized about it. And if you have any questions about that, you need to write down what you're eating. Just write it down. Send it to me. If you want to message me what you're eating, cool. You can email me, shakti@shaktirrios.com. I'll put it in the comments. Just journal for a whole day what you eat from the moment that you wake up to the moment that you go to bed. Write it down and send it to me. And I will look at it and show you what's up. Why you're having the experience that you're having. There's so much that goes into this, you guys. Sugars, alcohol, they disrupt your blood sugar. They disrupt your sleep. It messes with your sleep. It messes with your hormones. These are things that we don't think about, but it's true. It happens. And so I've come to a point where I'm more passionate than ever about making people understand, especially if you're having mental health issues like postpartum depression and anxiety, that you need to be looking at your food like a hawk. Because I cannot believe the difference in me in just a week and a half of not eating any gluten, really no dairy with the exception of grass-fed yogurt once a week or maybe twice a week. I might have that in the morning. No gluten, no inflammatory things in my body, no meat, no, just really plants, a lot of plants and a lot of high quality carbs early in the morning, not in the afternoon. From past 9 a.m. on, it's all greens and fruits. That's it. And some protein. That's pretty much what it is. And it has dramatically impacted my experience of life, night and day, 100%. So I just wanted to really drop that for you guys to take home, to really think about. If you need help, if you have questions, if you've been on the fence about doing anything that I'm doing, or you're inspired by this, I'm more than happy to help you. But if you're not, and you just want to take a second to reflect, that's fine. But get very brutally honest about what you're doing with your nutrition, because your food is affecting your brain 100%. You are probably not feeding to fuel. You are feeding to medicate your wounds. And that is a problem. And it's more problematic because our society is set up to facilitate, to enable you to feed your feelings. And that is what's really, really tough about this. Everywhere you go, there's cakes and cookies, and it's a holiday meal, and it's acceptable, and it's enabling you to eat the things that you know are medication for wounds and not fuel for your body. And that's a big, 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 big difference, those two things. Okay? I love you guys. As always, please take care of yourself and take care of each other. If you have any questions, please comment. If this video inspired you, please share it out. If you know someone that could use this, that could really have this like open their eyes or their hearts to try something new, please share it out. Love you guys. Have a great Wednesday.